a double 360-degree rainbow. That is going to be the topic of this episode of Chi Life. I'm going to share a pretty cool experience out in nature that I had with you. And of course I will tie that into some things relating to Qigong as well. Alright, so just a few days ago I had the experience of going out to visit a waterfall. Now, I hadn't done anything like that in quite a while. I've been just so busy working, getting some course material ready for one of the courses. It's really, occupied almost all of my time for quite a few months. But I finally had an opportunity, just a few days ago, and it was a beautiful experience. I went out with a couple of other guys and we had a bit of a hike to get there, and the experience I'm going to share with you is a very specific experience I had while at the waterfall. And I will put in just a few shots, I didn't take too many, but a few shots of the waterfall so you can see at least a little bit of the area that I'm talking about. Unfortunately, I didn't have a waterproof camera with me, and so I wasn't able to take a shot of the specific thing that I'm going to tell you about. But still, you'll get a bit of an idea. So, at one spot, right beside the upper waterfall. So this waterfall, there's two parts. There's a lower waterfall with a deep pool below it, and then there's an upper waterfall which is a bit bigger, also with a deep pool below it. At the bottom of the upper waterfall, there were rocks that you could climb onto, right beside where the water was falling. And so I had gone up there by myself. I didn't have anyone else around me at that point. There were a few other people swimming there, as well as the two other people I came with. And I went up and I climbed up onto the rocks, in amongst all this water falling and breaking on the rocks and creating droplets, putting a lot of moisture into the air. And I found this one little spot and I just stood there, enjoying the atmosphere, the falling water, enjoying the sunshine. And I looked down and I saw a 360-degree rainbow that went all the way around me. I thought, that's pretty cool. And I checked to be sure it went all the way around me, because of course I could see quite a bit just looking downwards, but couldn't necessarily see behind me without turning my head. And I turned my head, it's like, yeah, it goes all the way around. Very, very cool. And then as I looked a little bit more, I realized that it was actually a double rainbow. So there's one rainbow quite close to me, and then another rainbow a little bit further out. Both 360 degrees. Very, very cool. Not something I had ever experienced before. Now, if you understand a little bit about physics, about energy really, I mean, that's what physics is about, you'll understand how this works. Simply it's from the light coming through the water droplets that were in the air and being refracted through it, and as a result of that and the interaction between how the light is entering my eyes, I was seeing the refracted light in this rainbow. And this is the same way that we see other rainbows, after a storm or something like that. It's the light refracting through the moisture in the atmosphere. Now in this instance, I was in this tiny little microclimate spot with the water all around me, so I could see a 360-degree rainbow. That's not something you normally see after a storm, because you see just part of an arc because the horizon's in the way, but this time it went all the way around me. So I thought that was very, very cool. So I spent a while there. I stood there, enjoyed it. I then actually just sat down, and sitting down I could still see this 360-degree double rainbow, and yeah, I just sat and enjoyed that moment for a while. Alright, so a cool experience, or I thought it was a cool experience anyway. Maybe I'll talk now about a few ways this ties in with Qigong. So I did tell the other people who I was with when I came back, and I talked to them, both the two people who I had gone out with and one of the other people who happened to be there at that time. I told them about this cool spot that I'd found, and the angle was just right for the double rainbow, and it was, you know, very, very cool. They had also been in that same area, and it didn't seem like any of them had noticed it. They understood the concept that I was talking about, but they hadn't noticed it. And I thought that was interesting. In addition to that, while they were like, oh yeah, that's cool, they didn't seem all that interested to go and check it out for themselves either, which I thought was also interesting. And yeah, this ties into maybe Qigong, or how we interact with Qigong. Because one of the things that comes from our Qigong practice often is a much greater sensitivity to energy. We are tuning into energy inherently within our Qigong practice, and so we start to notice these things more readily, more easily, certainly within ourselves, but then also in the environment around us. Now, not all of that energy is necessarily going to be visible, as in visible light and color, but just that pattern of you know, paying attention to some of the subtlety can make us aware of all different types of energy. And so maybe it's coincidence, but I think there's a good chance that that was why I noticed this while others visiting didn't, because they weren't used to looking for subtle things within the energy simmer. And so practicing Qigong often gives us, in my opinion, a much richer interaction with the energy of nature around us. And I think part of this can also lead to at least different aspects of appreciation of nature as well. I think another thing in terms of personality types, interests and things relating to Qigong is also just the level of interest that different people have in this sort of thing. Clearly, I'm quite interested in it. And I find these sorts of things fascinating. Whereas people I talk to who are also there, you know, maybe it's a little bit interesting, but they weren't that interested. And I think this also goes to, well, how some people will interact with Qigong as well. For some of us, it's absolutely fascinating. And for others, maybe it's a little bit interesting. And for others, maybe it's not something they're interested in at all. And that's okay. You know, there's all sorts of different people in life with different interests, and we don't all have to be interested in the same things. And this can sometimes explain maybe, you know, the way different people will sometimes respond to the same situation, the same experience. We have different levels of interest in it. Another thing, connecting this cool experience I had with aspects of Qigong is, of course, within Qigong, we're often looking for patterns in nature, or if not necessarily looking for them, recognizing patterns within nature, because we know that we can learn from those patterns in nature, both about nature itself and also about our energy within ourselves. This 360-degree rainbow is an interesting example of that. Of course, there's many patterns of energy in nature, and different parts of those patterns we recognize within ourselves. You know, the patterns of energy flow within our meridians, the way it gathers into dantians or oceans, you know, all of those sorts of things are part of the patterns we see in nature, and we also see in ourselves. This pattern of diffracted color is actually another pattern that we see both in nature and can see within ourselves as well. It applies in some quite specific applications of Qigong practice. Probably the one most directly is applied to Qigong Healing, where we can consider that our whole energy is like full spectrum light. So it's white, it has all of the different frequencies within it. But when we consider our energy just as white full spectrum light, we're not able necessarily to distinguish how balanced that energy is, because there are different shades of white, right? Which means that there's different strengths of the different frequencies within it. We can also effectively tune into those different frequencies, essentially the diffracted parts of the light, the different colors within the whole of our energy. And this can actually be very, very useful for then working with those different parts of our energy to strengthen them, to bring them into balance, so each of those parts become healthy, and so the whole becomes more healthy and balanced as well. And so yes, we do that within specific Qigong practices. It is quite subtle, quite a subtle, nuanced thing to develop that awareness and develop skill with working with it, but it is very useful in quite a practical way when you're at the right time to be working with that type of practice. And again, really, really cool to see this specific manifestation of that pattern all around me in a 360-degree rainbow out in nature. So anyway, I just thought I would share this cool experience with you, as well as maybe some insights of how it connects to Qigong. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please like, comment, subscribe, share, all those good things, and I look forward to seeing you on another vlog soon.